Hello, everyone. Welcome in our webinar about the report we've done some time ago, not that far, recently, let's say, about web hosting and what are the trends and strategies, and even the future. We will talk a little bit about the future of web hosting. And so I am happy to introduce myself. My name is Pavel. I am developer advocate here at UpCloud, and I will be today the host, and I have the opportunity to talk with three great speakers, three great guys from UpCloud, and they will share their opinions and their like key takeaways from this report. So, agenda for today is very simple. We will tell you a little bit about our web hosting report. Then we will discuss this. We have a couple of minutes for questions and answers. Then we will share with you our resources. And finally, each of us will share with one thing what is the most important for us from this report. So, first of all, couple of housekeeping items. You can ask questions in our Q&A box. You can find it in the Zoom application. And the recording will be available quite soon. So check our social medias. Everything will be there. All right. So I said a little bit about myself. We have three great people with me. So we have Miguel, Ville, and Samu. Miguel, if you could tell us a couple words about yourself.
Hi, yes, very briefly. Thank you, Pavel. My name is Miguel. I am lead product manager for managed services at UpCloud. That includes our managed Kubernetes, UKS service, managed databases, managed load balancers, and object storage.
Yep. Thank you very much. Samu?
Thank you, Pavel. So, I'm Samu Sarlato. I'm a partner manager at UpCloud. I've been working for UpCloud for over 8 years, and why I'm here is probably because I work, as the name says, closely with our partners, especially with the web hosting and infrastructure provider partners. Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. And last but not least, Ville.
Hey, thank you, Pavel. Ville Vesilehto, the head of AI and data here at UpCloud. Been here for almost 4 years, background in developer tooling and managed services like Kubernetes and also databases, and a long history with software engineering and SRE DevOps type of things. Super happy to be here.
We are super happy to have you. So all of us are from UpCloud. So what is UpCloud? Just in one sentence, it's European cloud provider, right? We provide the services, managed services, servers, storages, load balancers. You heard all of that from the presentations of our speakers. You can go to upcloud.com, sign up, try our services, and be happy with that. All right, so let's continue then. First, let me tell you a little bit about report. So you are able to download the full report. Here is the QR code. And we had in this report almost 500,000 of participants from 59 countries. So quite huge amount of responses, which are giving us some good vision what is there, right? So as you can see, we have the majority of the answers are from, maybe not majority, but the highest number is from the Europe. Of course, we have different regions as well. So all regions, maybe except Antarctica, is in our report. But I'm not sure if anyone on Antarctica is doing web hosting. Anyway, what are our findings here? So first of all, what is interesting, but not that surprising, I think, for all of us, that even companies in Europe are using in majority, the big three, right? That's obvious. They are the most popular. They are on the market for the longer time. Everyone is using that. But the number of, let's say, European providers in this pie here, or two different areas is growing. So this is something what for us is very, very good. And we are happy to see the growth going up, and up for EU-based providers. And now, talking about this, of course, one of the most important elements for everyone is how much you pay for your services. And of course, we asked this in our questionnaire, and we have a couple of responses, as you can see. And we can tell that yes, costs are very important for the customers and the people who deliver the services to their customers, but it's not necessarily the most and only important element. So I would like to ask Samu here, because cost, performance, everything like that is somewhere in your discussions with the partners, with customers. So how do you see this? What you can find for us, for the market, for the industry from this report?
Yeah, this personally didn't come as a surprise that this is so important to in this industry for the people who responded in the survey. So based on my experience, people are always looking great performance. Of course, they want to offer their customers as great hosting as possible. They want the websites to load as fast as possible. They want that to be a differentiator for themselves, but also they don't want the cost to get out of hand. So yes, it is a balancing act. And also then sometimes they might want to have other stuff like great support from the provider to go along with that. So it does get a little tricky when you want the best performance, best stability and uptime, and great support to go along with that. So yeah, it is a challenge for providers like UpCloud to make everything happen at once. But yes, definitely not a surprise to me that this was so important.
Yeah, it's obvious, always like that. We want to have the best services for the lowest possible price, right? So, guys, from your perspective, how the, let's say, level of costs is connected to what Samu said about having the best performance, best support, and so on and so on and so on. Because everything, what is the best, involves more and more effort, more and more people, more and more activities done by someone who is behind. So Miguel, maybe from your perspective, how do you see this impact on prices? How we can, let's say, make our customers happier with the price, but also having this best service to offer?
It's a very interesting challenge, of course. What I see in our conversations with customers is that more and more we're seeing a shift towards managed services to try and find the right balance between those two priorities, right? Because cost management and improving performance and uptime. Why? Because managed services, of course, require less maintenance overhead, less operational overhead, because they are built to be resilient, because backups and observability and uptime are all built into these things, right? As opposed to, for example, trying to run all of your infra yourself on raw VMs. So it's not everyone's cup of tea. Some technology teams prefer still to try and run everything on raw VMs. They like the control and the flexibility that comes with that. But more and more we're seeing a shift towards managed services as the answer to this question.
Yeah, and even if we pay a little bit more for the managed service because it is managed, it's not a raw instance, right? Still, there is another cost which goes lower and lower. So this is the maintenance. This is all the things we need to do by our hands if we have our own installation. So yeah, and Ville, I think that we will talk about AI a little bit later in the scope of this report, but from this perspective of cost optimization and lowering the cost and giving the faster performance, better services, and so on and so on and so on, how do you see the, let me be quite, simple here. How do you see the power of AI in all of these aspects?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think like all, many types of anomaly detections that people can use to detect when you're overspending or underspending are something you could use artificial intelligence for. But I would say we're not there yet as an industry. I mean, there are a lot more lower hanging fruits to optimize in the kind of value that you bring to the customers when it comes to cost to performance. I think managed services is a good example from, if you run your databases as single tenant databases, one per customer kind of things, then with a managed service, you typically don't have the same type of model. You start thinking about the software architecture in general without even involving AI in any of this. Like maybe you have a multi-tenant database to some extent, and then for very special occasions, you have single tenant databases. So it's kind of a mix that affects the overall journey, but managed services are definitely one part of that. And how do you manage the full stack? But I would say it takes a bit longer until we can get AI involved with this.
Yeah, sure. And with those three tiles here, except lower cost, but lower cost as well, but mainly improved uptime, better performance, better dev tools, and so on. Having services or providers like UpCloud, we give you not only the service, we give you also the experience we collect from running something for many other companies. So we are gathering those infos. We have the information what we can provide for others, right? So that's why we can improve our services and with that also lower the costs. All right, folks, let's go to the next part of our report. Very interesting one about multi-cloud. And with my career, quite long, unfortunately, maybe for my ages, but I saw the shift from single cloud a couple of years ago, maybe 10 or something like that, towards multi-cloud. So Miguel, the question to you, how do you see in this specific area, like web hosting, the possibilities and the options what we can have, we as providers or our customers for multi-cloud? How will you define this area for our customers?
Yeah, well, let's see. I think the results of the survey ring true in the sense that whenever we talk to customers and whenever we get feedback, the multi-cloud scenario or some form of a mixed setup is more and more frequent. So, for example, that 50% there, it's roughly 50% of of customers of survey respondents attested that they are either using more than one cloud provider or a combination of a cloud provider and on-premise. This is more and more what we see. And then it's very much in line with the other figures that you see there. For example, that 58% of respondents stating that containerization is likely, very or extremely likely to influence their strategy in the coming years, because the only way, well, let's say the most efficient way that you can achieve optimal deployments or an optimal cost of being able to maintain this complexity across clouds and in between cloud and on-premise deployments is by using containers, right? It's what delivers that portability, that repeatability, that ability for you to be able to reproduce the same environment consistently across any infrastructure. So yeah, so that's all to say it rings true. It's very much in line with the tendency that we see in the industry of more and more adoption for Kubernetes in particular and containers as a whole. If you see the latest CNCF survey, you will see that all of the trends for container and containers and Kubernetes adoption are trending upward. And and then on top of that, if you are a European web hosting company, I think you should really keep in mind that new regulation is coming. In particular, this EU Data Act that has been in force, but it will start being since I believe January this year, but it will start being applicable really, so enforceable uh, on in now in September. So what that essentially does is, for those who are not familiar with that new piece of European legislation, it essentially reads that every data operator is compelled to make every, if I remember correctly, reasonable effort they can to make sure that third party governments or agencies cannot unlawfully access the data of their customers, right? Now, this is really important if you're a European company hosting with a non-European cloud provider, because it effectively collides with already existing US regulation, which is the Cloud Act, which essentially says that any US based company can be compelled by the US government to hand over data that they control wherever it resides. So these two regulations are now in direct contradiction of each other. So, and what that means is that as a European web hosting company, you're going to have to make tough decisions in terms of what do you host where. So you're going to have to make so the decision of where do you host used to be based only on performance and cost, perhaps. Now it's also a compliance decision. Like, can I host this piece of data outside the EU, or in particular with a US based company? Or do I have to have a mix? Like maybe some stuff will run on the big three, maybe some stuff will run on European cloud providers. And in order to do that, the answer, my recommended answer would be the same: adopt containerization and if possible, or even better if it's Kubernetes.
You touched very, very, very important, extremely important element. And just like side note from my side, you mentioned the CNCF report, which is saying that adoption of Kubernetes is bigger and bigger and bigger, what is contradictory to what Medium authors write about that Kubernetes is dead. But I believe CNCF somehow.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on the internet. If you
Yes.
browse Medium and Dev.to, you'll find a lot of, I'm going to say, clickbait.
Yeah.
Big and all of a sudden everything is dead. Like Kubernetes is dead, the cloud is dead. So many things are supposedly dead. And then when you get to the end of the article, it's like, well, it's not really dead. It's like depends on what you need or want, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that going on. But I think by any industry analyst, the numbers may diverge quite a bit. Kubernetes adoption is up, containerization adoption is up. So I don't think any of that is going away.
Definitely not. Yes. But you touched a very important element. This is the real part which I want to address here. This Data Act. And this is also aligned somehow with the incoming AI Act, which is already here. It's not enforced till 27, I think, fully. But both of those are very, very, very important. And I don't want to say which company said that, but they admitted that they can't really say that never the data which is stored in European storage will never hit US headquarter, right? So this is also important here to add what you, Miguel, said. But with this Data Act and AI Act, Ville, how do you see this multi-cloud part for those elements like storing your data, transferring your data, operate on your data, operate with AI?
So yet another good question, and I think it's quite dimensional in many ways, because let's consider if you are using already European providers who might not have these type of AI capabilities, and you end up using a US provider. Now, that's a bit problematic. Then maybe you start using, instead of a US provider, one of the like AI labs that are in the US. Maybe you switch to a European one, or you think that it's a European one, and maybe still the data flows because the inference itself, the input that you send to the models is then transferred to the US. You might not even know that. So I think there's, for the multi-cloud approach, it's not only the dimension is not just hyperscalers, but also neo clouds, clouds that are super focused on a specific vertical, like giving high performance GPU servers and things like that. And it's still an important decision to make. You need to make sure that your data stays in Europe, no matter which type of AI integrations you might have in the stack. So sovereignty, I would say, is the key word here. If you stay fully European, you don't have to care about the Data Act that much. If the data stays there, and basically doing AI as close to your data where you store it. So that's maybe my take on it.
Yeah, sure. That's a very good one. And Samu, how do you see this in your discussions with the partners, customers? It is something what is more and more raised by people.
Yeah, I definitely see this as a competitive edge for especially like smaller hosting providers who compared to the ones who are, let's say, more traditional, who still run on their own infrastructure in, let's say, one location. Using multiple different providers from who have multiple locations across the world, you give access to your customers to multiple different locations to be, let's say, closer to their end customers, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely not a surprise again that so many respondents are already using multiple providers or looking to expand that use of multi-cloud.
Yeah, sure. And there is one more aspect which maybe is not that commonly touched by people, but we are in the era where the climate changes are quite more and more important for people, and we are more and more aware of this. Miguel, how do you see this? Is anything with this green energy or something like that pushing people to search for something else than they are using currently?
Yes, I am very happy to see this figure coming out of that report. It fills me with hope. I think as a father of two young children, I think a lot about the future, and it concerns me quite a bit what's happening to our environment. So even though this wasn't the biggest number or the biggest driver as per what our respondents said, would influence their business strategy, I think that 38% is massive compared to where we were, let's say, 10 years ago in terms of awareness of what's happening and what we can do. And as an industry, I think the cloud has moved quite fast in terms of trying to minimize its impact on the environment, because at least in Europe now, for example, all of our data centers in Europe run on green energy, which is a fact that is not that well known, right? And I believe most European cloud providers are also making considerable efforts to move in that direction. Unfortunately, not so much in other geographies. Maybe green energy or renewable energy is not as easily available in other parts of the world. But I think this is definitely a step in the right direction. Like 10 years ago, I don't believe we would have had not even an 8% here of respondents attesting to this. So I think we're moving in the right direction. I think we, as part of the industry, have a responsibility to try and push for this more. I think web hosting providers, we should also look into ways that they can address this concern from their customers, because depending on, well, unfortunately, this still has to do with, well, there's a lot of political polarization of this issue, but I believe more and more the tendency is for people to be aware of the problem and want to contribute a bit. So if a young company, a small company, wants to host their website or their website with you, or their e-commerce with you, I'm sure that more and more will happen, that they will be looking for you to be able to guarantee that the sources of energy that you're using are green and renewable. And in that sense, then we as infrastructure providers have also an important role to play.
Yeah, I concur. And there's this, for example, Green Web Foundation website, which is like this non-profit website where you can look if a provider is actually using green or renewable energy in their data centers. And you can have your website there as well listed, so that your customers can check if you are actually running on sustainable energy. And I've seen this a lot in my discussions with especially web hosting companies and partners. They often ask about our data centers, the energy type that we use in specific data centers. They basically refuse to use data centers that do not run on 100% renewable energy, which is great to see, to be honest. So definitely a trending topic, and also something that is starting to trend a little bit is ARM processors. So we sometimes get this question as well, like, have you been looking into ARM processors? Because they are sort of, to my understanding, a little bit more green, if you will.
Sure, and seeing this 38%, it's a lot. It's a lot, and it must start somewhere. So we can be trendsetters, of course. All right, let's continue now. The topic which I believe, at least for many people, is very, very important is compliance and security. We touched a little bit the all acts we have in Europe, right? We have GDPR, which is well known for many years already. We have this Data Act, we have this AI Act, we have many, many other regulations which we need to comply. And what is very satisfying to me is to see that 87% of our respondents said that compliance is very or extremely important for them. So how do you see this really? I'm just, pushing the question to the air right now. How do you see the importance of being compliant as a web provider and also the infrastructure provider for these web providers?
This is also a topic that comes up basically every time we have a discussion with customers and also with our partners. They want to work with compliant infrastructure or cloud provider like ourselves. So basic questions like, are you ISO 27001 certified? Well, GDPR doesn't come up that often. It's also already like everyone just assumes that you are GDPR compliant, but that did come up when that came into effect back in the day. And then in addition to just being compliant, of course, like features like let's say encryption at rest comes up, and DDoS mitigation processes and capabilities, and they are, especially in the hosting industry, super important. The web hosting providers do not want their customer's website to be down, or at least the provider has some sort of process to mitigate the DDoS attacks, so that the whole data center is not down because of an attack or something like that. So yeah, definitely super yeah. Well, as we see in the lower left corner, 358% increase in DDoS attacks. It's crazy, especially during this current geopolitical climate. Yeah, it's very important topic that, yeah, and thing that you have to just be able to defend yourself and your customers against these attacks.
Definitely, and seeing this kind of increase, it's not just the simple DDoS attacks. They are more sophisticated, like other attacks as well. So having this in mind is very important. So seeing also 36% sees this factor as the most important, and 50% planning to significantly increase the investments. I believe the second 50% just planning to invest in security. Anyway, Miguel, from your perspective as a person who is deeply involved in creating those services, right? So how we can enforce this message to the web hosting providers? Because today, and this will be the question to Ville really, we see more and more AI involvement in creation of our services and so on and so on and so on. And let's be honest, AI is artificial, yes, but not necessarily very intelligent yet. So we need to enforce some best practices, some best implementations, right? How we can like evangelize about this.
Well, let's see. I would say that precisely because we're seeing this landscape where more and more companies have to opt for some sort of a hybrid setup, so either across clouds or cloud plus on-prem. Um, the, the level of complexity that any one company has to deal with in order to manage this type of setup it increases, right? And then as complexity increases, it becomes more error prone or prone to human error. And, uh, and I believe the statistics in the software security industry point that most of security breaches happening due to things that were preventable. So human error, whereby a port is left open that and it shouldn't be, or there's no good reason for it. I believe I saw the other day a really alarming stat. I believe it was something like 80% of permissions, if I remember correctly, this was specifically for Kubernetes deployments, are unused. This means that people are just opening up their clusters for no good reason. And so the ability to deploy tools to scan your setups is important. Your own cloud providers mechanisms for scanning for vulnerabilities are important. Their compliance is important. So, at UpCloud, our security posture is one of the most important aspects of what we do. Our CIO was recently on a video. It was very nice to see it, and it got a lot of traction speaking about our security posture and how we have a bug bounty program. So all of these things are important. If you're a web hosting company looking for cloud providers, and in particular, if you have these setups across providers, then you should make sure that the cloud providers that you choose are compliant and have a solid security posture, no doubt.
Sure. So, Ville, before I go to you, I will go to the next slide, which is about AI exactly. So, your area. And let's talk a little bit in connection what we just said about how AI influence the future of web hosting. So, what do you see in these areas?
Yeah, I
How
think it
AI
was
can be,
one of
implemented there, and what are the, let's say, different blocks you can use, because it's not like simple use AI and what, right?
yes, yeah, exactly. And I think it was one of the first findings in the report also that AI is how much AI is influencing decisions. Now you can read it two ways. Is it about people asking ChatGPT questions and then that's the influence you get on the decisions, or is it you're working towards using AI and enabling, let's say, more productivity in the new web hosting company? But anyway, set that aside. It requires investments. It requires investments from the infrastructure layer, such as us, but also from the web hosting providers. Like, what's the angle you take on AI? And I think there are many niche strategies to this. Most natural one, obviously, being you're reselling GPU servers, for example, and it's a kind of a blunt instrument. You can use GPU servers to run not only LLMs but any machine learning workloads, or be it video decoding, transcoding, you name it. Whatever uses matrices can be accelerated through GPUs, and there's like you get quite a blunt instrument that way, and then it gets a bit more, let's say, nuanced or niche depending on what type of possibilities there are. I mean, you can use LLMs for if it's a web hosting, let's say WordPress platform, or if it's Magento, you can do content classification from comments, whether they should be thrown to the bin. Let's say it's a blog site, for example, or if you're doing product catalogs, maybe you generate some type of content around, maybe it's missing some metadata and you're generating that based on the given information you have, to doing very internal things like enhancing customer service and things like that. So I think many think that AI is kind of an end-to-end thing, that you just enable it and then it's there and it's 10x productivity. But at the moment, it looks like the best results come from sort of middle to middle improvements, and keeping human in the loop at this point. Human expertise plus AI, generative AI is the angle, and there's many opportunities in the market around this. It's very kind of, I would say, from last year, from proof of concepts to actually doing AI transformation inside companies seems to be the thing that's happening now, and it enables many possibilities. Kind of piggybacking to the green compute example, CPUs use a lot of, or accelerators in general use a lot of power. We, for example, are using a lot of the excess heat that comes out of the data center we use is used for district thermal heating and things like that. So it's 100% renewable energy. So there's a lot of things you can do as an infrastructure layer provider to web hosting companies in that segment. So yeah, many sort of possibilities there, and filling this gap by not just renting space. Here's a GPU server. You could also deliver something of expertise. Maybe it's like I said, a pipeline for transforming video from one format to another, or taking video in and exporting it to other endpoints, be it if it's a streaming service, for example, providing the output to YouTube, TikTok, and you name it. Shuffling data from one place to another through your service. So I think many good possibilities there.
Right. And having what you said about pipelines, it immediately comes to my head the full supply chain. How do you see this in the scope of the full supply chain, what we said before and now?
Yeah, I mean, it's what that comes to also the compliance part, data sovereignty, especially if you have customer data and you want to utilize AI, you probably need to churn through that data into some intermediate format before it's in a usable state. If you're fine-tuning models or just enhancing or enriching the data sets. So you want to do that somewhere that the data doesn't get exposed to, let's say, outside of Europe in general. But then in supply chain, I think it goes to the things you use to mangle the data with, to using software that's not outdated, to what type of AI plugins you, for example, use in some of the hosted services you offer, and kind of managing this complexity. I think software supply chain is super important, considering there's AI involved in many of these things, to actually producing the code, to reviewing it, to then offering it as a service. But yeah,
Sure.
it's also risky.
Yeah. So let's go further, because AI is very interesting topic, but we can spend hours talking about this, like every single topic we just did. So for those are our findings which we all agreed to discuss, but now it's time for our audience to ask questions. And in fact, we have questions. So first question is, how do you leverage AI while also ensuring a high level of security and compliance? I believe, Ville, you answered to this a little, but if you like to, say something more here.
Expand. Yeah, I can expand. I think keeping AI as close to your data set makes a big difference. It makes the security posture a lot more simple. It's also compliant, because if your data is already, you can expect that it's in a compliant state. Then if you add AI to it, it very likely is also, if you keep it right next to your data. So it's use. I think in practice, it means that you would be hosting things by your own, using managed services from us, or then doing something custom, but anyway, so that it's very close to the data you work with.
Right, and we have another question from Alejandro. I hope I spelled your name correctly. And this is something what I'd like to ask Samu and Miguel as well. The question is building infrastructure in-house the best way to ensure compliance and control performance for web hosting businesses? So Samu, for you, the question is, do you have questions like this? Do you see more and more like awareness how to ensure this compliance and how to do it? And for Miguel, how do you see, and yes, I will be biased here, but how do you see why using cloud providers is better than build it in-house?
So if I may start, I might not be an expert on building your in-house infrastructure, but I would assume that achieving or the level of compliancy that we have, for example, or let's say the big three has, it would be very hard to achieve that when you're building anything in-house. So just having your own servers physically sitting somewhere doesn't mean that you're compliant automatically, or that it's secure automatically. And also it doesn't necessarily mean performance either, or scale. So and what I've seen in general is that more and more web hosting or hosting providers in general, or cloud hosting providers even, are moving away from their own infrastructure. The market is very competitive. If you're focusing on the whole supply chain, from running your own infrastructure to building your own API and control panel and features like managed Kubernetes, it requires a lot. So it's just easier for you to focus on value-added services like managed services or support and stuff like, and sales and marketing. And let someone else do the hard heavy lifting for you. So I would say no, in short.
Yeah, I for the most part, I would concur with what Sam just said. I mean, sure, if you have very deep pockets and you can afford building that level of infrastructure, that level of sophistication, and making sure that it stays compliant, then great. But for most web hosting companies, I would think that that is not cost effective or the best use of their time and resources. So you do better by just purchasing already compliant infrastructure from a cloud provider.
Sure, and I agree with both of you. All right, so let's finalize our webinar because it's already 45 minutes, yes. So if you like to go and download the report, here is the QR code for you. And I will keep this slide for a second. And to finalize our webinar, I would like to ask all of you one by one about one key findings in this report, which was the most important for you. And I put this as a very hard task. One sentence, please. Miguel.
Well, I'd like to say it's the growth of the multi-cloud approach and containerization and Kubernetes adoption, but my heart is with the renewable energy finding. So
Perfect. You put two in one sentence. Great. Samu.
I'd say don't compromise when it comes to uptime, cost, and performance. So meaning that let's say local disks offer you fast performance, but they might not give you great uptime. So try to get best of all worlds or both worlds, uptime, performance, and cost.
Sure. Great. Thank you. And Ville.
Last but not least, well, as we saw from the report, Europe runs on non-European clouds. I think there's a lot of possibilities for European narratives around it and a lot of business growth available. So that's my take, the most important.
And my take will be to agree with all of you. Okay, so thank you very much for you being here as our speakers. I really appreciate your time and your insights. And thank you all who watch us already live and those who will do it later somewhere in the internet. Here you can see where and how to find us, to connect with us. Please do it, connect with us, comment, discuss. If you have any more questions to ask, use LinkedIn, whatever else to do so. And of course, try UpCloud. Okay, thank you very much, guys. We have a couple of takeaways which we generally went through. So I will not go through it, but just keeping this slide on the end, just to have quite nice closing chapter for us. Thank you everyone for joining us. See you next time. We'll see when. Check our social media, you will see this.
bye everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.